Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Jesse Haugen, and I recently got this lav mic, which means that I can shoot myself from more than just one angle, and if you shoot it from this angle, you get a bunch of cool stuff in the background. And this is a YouTube Q&A, let's just get right into it. Alright, so let's get into it. There's one question I get asked more than anything else, and that is from people who ask questions like, "Hi Jesse, tell us about your favorite libraries and which ones do you use for different genres?" Or go-to libraries, virtual instruments, or "This seriously blew my mind, dude, absolutely incredible. What were the main libraries you used for this score?" Wonderful score. I loved how you
Great
used
score. Can you share what
orchestral
orchestral
libraries? Can you make a
libraries
video about your orchestral library and what kind of plugins you use and what you use for it?
Hey,
Hey, great theme. Just one question. What libraries are you using? Love your work. Alright, I'll answer that first. It's going to be a little bit of a long one, but you guys want to see some of the libraries, so let's do that.
Okay, so I thought the easiest way for me to answer this question would actually be to open up one of my empty templates. This is my master template. This is usually what I start every project with. And I'll just walk through sort of the sounds and libraries that are always in my template. Obviously things change, but this will give you just a generic overview of some of my favorite libraries. I do not have time to go into every single detail of all the libraries, but if I just give you a rough overview of at least the orchestral stuff, I think that should satisfy some of your curiosity. And then if you want extended videos on this later, I can definitely do that. But this is definitely the longest answer to a question. So if you look at the template, it's basically just an empty template with just a piano patch. This is Cinematic Studio Piano, which I really love. It's just a nice place to start. This is typically when I'm kind of sketching up ideas for cues or laying down kind of like a scratch track. I'll be doing it using this piano. It just sounds like a real piano, which is awesome. And then this is part of the reason I switched to Cubase. There's this hotkey that I made, and if you press 5 on the number pad, watch this. Okay, all of these folders opened up, and then in all of these folders are all these disabled unactivated tracks of all the things that I've put in my template over the years and have been building up, and sounds that I've made. And all of these are like, you know, any settings I've done to them, but they don't all load up. So they're not all taking up CPU and memory and everything right from the get-go. I can only load the things that I want. And then once I load them, like for example, let's just load this emotional piano. So I press D to load it. It takes a second sometimes. It's a little longer than normal. Probably the way that I'm capturing this video is just making this take a little bit. And then I click 5, everything else hides, and we're just back to that one patch. And then that patch is there now, and if I end up not wanting it and I want to hide it again, I can just open everything up, disable it, click 5 again, and now it's gone. So it's just really, really easy template management, which makes things so much simpler for me as I'm going and composing quickly and just trying to get everything done. Okay, so let's go through some of these libraries. So let's start woodwinds. Now, there's a woodwind library that I need. I won't go through synths. That's a whole other thing. I can do another video on that. I'm going to stick with just orchestral libraries here. There's a woodwind library that I need, which is Cinematic Studio Woodwinds. I will get it eventually. It is the best woodwind library money can buy. I do a lot of work with a guy named Andrew, and at his studio he has it, and I use it there, and it's just unbelievable. There's nothing like it. But a lot of my woodwinds right now are actually East-West. You'll see I actually use a lot of East-West, which is old school stuff, but I bought a lot of it when I was a very young aspiring composer, and it just, some of it just works. Like this is Hollywood woodwinds, orchestral woodwinds gold, and I mean some of this stuff just sounds really nice. Yeah, it totally works. There's nothing wrong with that flute sample. And then what I like about their staccatos is that the mod wheel actually will change how short it is. So at the bottom, it's real short. At the top, it's more like a marcato. And then there's some space in between, which I love that. We'll talk about that more with brass, but I think that works really well. I have like some ethnic stuff from Dark Era, which is a really cool library, you know, like some didgeridoo drones, you know, bunch of stuff like that I really think is cool. Dark Era is a incredibly cool library in Engine. It's just awesome. I love it. A lot of the sounds are incredible. A lot of the soundscapes are just phenomenal. I use them all the time. More East-West. I do actually use some like Spitfire, like Legacy Albion 1, like the staccatos are pretty cool. There's actually an alternate staccato patch, this one, that I've been liking a little bit more lately. But anyway, so those are kind of my woodwinds. Again, this is just starting place. For brass, I mainly use two libraries. For all of my like sustain and legato, I use Hollywood brass from East West, which there's something about their 6-horn patches. Like 6-horn legato is unbelievable. There's just no brass library like it. I love the legato. It's the best legato that East West has ever done is in their brass. The sustains are also great. I love them. I think they sound great. Trumpets are I don't really have a trumpet library that I like. Trombones are also but you know, as long as the horns sound good, you can sell brass. My other go-to brass library, even though it's not as many patches, but I use it all the time, is Cinebrass. The thing about Cinebrass, I don't love the sustains, I don't love the legato, but this articulation sample is just incredible because you can also change volume using the mod wheel, like dynamic, but then you can also change how short the staccatos are. So if you touch it lightly, really short, and as you go up, it's longer. It's just so you get into the nitty gritty of programming that, and it sounds so real. It's just incredible. So for shorts, I'm using Cinebrass. Love the trombones and tuba and stuff on that. That works really well for me. This Jaeger stuff that I use sometimes for sustains. It works. It's not the best in the world, but sometimes it's right. A little brighter, a little more aggressive than the East-West stuff. These adventure horns and trumpets and trombones for musical sampling are pretty cool. They're like staccato, but you can also sustain them. Sounds kind of cheesy, but for like the big, like, in a context, it works pretty well. I like that. Performance Samples has some pretty cool stuff, like the angry horns are pretty cool. Again, just a quick overview, but that's sort of my brass. Strings, which is what everyone's pretty much asking about. My go-to string library, the thing that I use more than anything is easily Cinematic Studio Strings. There's just kind of no string library like it, mainly because the legato is the most realistic legato ever. It's this library here. I also I don't always use key switches in my final cues, but I like having a key switch patch because it allows me to compose pretty quickly. So these legatos are they're just beautiful. And if you do light velocity, it's more of like a portamento. See, it's longer. If you go fast, it's like a rebo, and then there's a medium in the middle that's more like a slur. Again, you get into the nitty-gritty of programming that, and you can really make realistic sounding strings. The staccatos are okay. I have my key switches mapped to this here. You can pick how staccato-y it is with your mod wheel. Tremolos are great. And the cool thing is it has legato tremolo. So that's actually the sound of a violinist changing notes while tremming. Harmonics are cool. I like the harmonics. Also legato harmonics. Trills are great. The measured trem is phenomenal. It syncs. So it just basically doubles the note value. It creates like sixteenths. Amazing. I love it. Pizzicato is also good. You got Collegno, Bartok, and normal pits. And every patch has that. 2 violin, 1, violin 2, viola, cellos, and basses. They all sound great. That is like my go-to string library. Occasionally, I'll use Hollywood strings. Some their legatos are also pretty cool. For shorts, that's where I venture away from Cinematic Studio Strings more. There's these Jaeger patches, particularly the cellos and the double bass that I really like. They're like real down there and gritty and kind of close sounding. You do them together. Those sound really nice, especially layered with something a little tamer sounding. These Vista performance samples are amazing. These, they don't work for everything the way that Cinematic Studio Strings kind of sounds good in all contexts for like the intimate stuff and the bigger stuff. This is like definitely all big. But I mean, if you've recorded live violins, like that's kind of just what it sounds like. I mean, that's the sound. These are really awesome. And they're like, it's a smaller chamber ensemble, which is usually when I'm recording, that's what I'm recording. So it's also just kind of similar to what I do in that way. And another reason that I really like it. What else do I have here? Oh man, there's so many things. These fluid shorts by Performance Samples are pretty great. They're kind of roomy. Like these go really well with those Jaeger ones that I was talking about because they're a little tamer than the Jaeger. So if I also load up the Jaeger violins, I'll play the Jaeger shorts with the fluid shorts. I mean, that sounds nice. You can see how that could layer up. Adventure violins, sort of same thing like the Adventure horns. It's, you know, it's like staccato, but it sustains. Those are really cool. I really love those as well. And then man, so many things. What else have I been using a lot? Oh, this is a free library by here, let's see these ones. Project Sam from Symphobia. It's called the Free Orchestra. There's this patch called Short Strings. I really like it. It just works. I think it works really well. I really like it. So that's a cool one. A lot of effects stuff that I use, like orchestral tools, 8DO, a lot of labs for effects. I love the lab stuff. It's awesome. There's some dark era stuff in here too. But again, quick overview, that's kind of the simple go-to stuff. Choir, I won a bunch of the Sound Iron libraries in that indie film music contest, which I use occasionally. I kind of avoid choir because I don't love my choir samples. But the Jaeger female legato is just incredible. I think I have some reverb and just reverb on it. Oh. That sounds great. These performance samples, Oceania, I think that's what they're called. Let's see. Oceania. These are cool. They're also like kind of shorts, but they sustain. And they're like phrases. Those are cool for the big epic stuff. The men sound good too. One of my favorite is a Sound Iron library called Venus Women or something or other. They have these like phrases, like sustained phrases. Sounds like this. That just sounds unbelievable. I use that all the time. So that's kind of the choir stuff. Okay, and then everyone's favorite percussion. I have the Spitfire harp, which I absolutely adore. I think it sounds great. I use the East-West harp some too. I have the free BBC stuff. That's cool. I have some dark era stuff again. A lot of East-West stuff for just my typical pitched percussion, orchestral stuff. And then the big percussion, okay, I have so many things, like LA Modern Percussion, a bunch of East-West stuff, dark era. Man, I get so confused by percussion, and I'm so bad at using it, and I almost always just go to this. I can't find it. I will search for it. The search function in Cubase is also great. Apocalyptic, that's the ethnic drums. Apocalypse bass and toms. This is like my go-to epic drums pad. I love those. I like the Jaeger drums as well. Like the sticks are cool. Or these ones. The Cerberus. I mean, these are great. absolutely love these. These are really cool. Okay, so yeah, that's super fast. But also maybe too long for a Q&A. So it's like right in that sweet spot of it doesn't give you as many details as you want, but it also is not nearly short enough to be in a Q&A. But that's where I like to live here on YouTube. Just like, what are you doing? So anyway, I hope that that's interesting. That's my answer to the first question. Some of my favorite libraries. Let's get to the next question.
All right, so that was a little long, but you guys got to see some of the libraries. Hopefully that was interesting for you. I also got a bunch of awesome questions just about like industry and career stuff, and so I'll answer a few of those for you right now. Drone Schwab asks, you have any tips for a young upcoming film composer? Now, I'm going to assume you mean people who are in pretty early stages who really aspiring, really are thinking about whether or not they want to do this for a living. And the first thing I'm going to say is, if you can be completely satisfied doing anything else, do anything else. Your life will likely be a lot less stressful, a lot simpler. Your paychecks will be more regular. It'll just be easier. But if you can't do anything else and music is just the thing that you have to do, which I totally understand, it needs to be the thing that you do. There's this, sometimes I meet people who say that they're a composer, and I'm like, well, what are you writing? And I'm like, well, I don't really write anything because no one's hired me to write anything. That's not really how it works. If you want to write music, you just need to be the kind of person who just writes music all the time. If you want to be a songwriter, the thing to do is just write songs. Write 10 songs a day. It doesn't matter if they're good or not. If you want to be a film composer, rip film scenes off the internet and just start scoring them. It doesn't matter whether it's a job or someone asks you to do it. It just matters that you're doing it. Because if you want to tell people, hey, I'm a film composer, you should be composing for film. And it doesn't matter whether that's paid work or if that's just something you found on the internet and you started doing. The best way for you to learn and the best way for you to really grow in the craft of composing for film is just to do the thing. So the tip I would say is just write a ton of music. Write more music than you ever thought possible. Write music every single day, even if it's just a little thing. And that'll go a long way for you. All right, Kwabzi Stavnicki asked, so where did you find your strongest connections into the film/TV scoring business? I'm not like deep into industry stuff. I'm very much in sort of like an indie corner of the industry, but I would just say that the biggest connections that I gained was actually through my school. I went to Biola University in Southern California here in La Mirada, and where I met there was a bunch of film students who let me score their student films, and then a lot of those people ended up going to work kind of in Zach King's camp. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. And I met another composer through that who works on a lot of Zach King stuff. That's Andrew. I've talked about him on this channel before. And so I started working with him. I still work with him to this day. We work on a bunch of the Zach King stuff together, and Aaron's Animals, which my previous video was about, linked above. And I got a lot of connections through him. I met other composers that I work for now through him. And then I met just other creative people there who have gone on to do creative things. Nowadays, I kind of meet people online. That's sort of a thing I never thought would actually happen, but it does happen. I do meet people online, and they'll reach out, and I score their projects that way. So yeah, I mean, the school was the biggest thing, and now it's just more of the online community because I'm just trying more and more to put myself out there online, and that's been really exciting to meet people and network that way. Drum In for Joy asks, what are the top 5 skills you need to be a successful composer? Put as simply as possible, you need to be good at writing music. That's kind of a given. And that's subjective, and that's okay. It doesn't really matter if you're good at writing any particular kind of music. Just be good at writing it. Make something that people or that you really like and be able to kind of do that consistently. You need to be really good at relationships. So much of this job is just interpersonal relationships and being good at navigating sometimes the difficulty that comes with that, but also the real benefits of that and connecting with people and growing in deep relationship with people. Because that's really important. It's important that you like hanging out with the people that you're working with. You need to be adaptable and humble. Nothing will make you reconsider being a film composer than the first time you write something that you think is incredibly cool and a director or a producer says, yeah, that's like not at all what we're looking for. Can you just throw that away and start something new? That at first hurts. It still hurts now, but you just have to be the kind of person who's like, yep, great, no problem. What are you looking for? Now we can get a little bit closer to it. I'll rewrite it. I'll make it better. and that's just a hard place to get to, but once you're there, it helps a lot. You need to be organized. Deadlines and multiple projects and people working for you and you working for people just requires a lot of logistics. Bookkeeping for taxes, which is a freaking nightmare that no one talks about. It just requires a lot of organization. So you need to be an organized type of person. And the last thing is just discipline. There are days, even though you're writing music, I mean, it feels like a job, because it is a job. And so you need to be the kind of person who can get up every day, and even when you don't feel like it or you're not inspired, you can sit down and do the work, and that helps a lot if you're a disciplined person. Nick OST Music asked, what are the skills or abilities that professional composers look for in an assistant? I really like this question. I assist other composers all the time in like additional music roles and stuff. I've never really done like the traditional composer's assistant, getting coffee and things like that. So I can't really speak to that as much, but what I can say is that one day, you know, if I ever think of getting an assistant or other composers I know who have me assist them on things, the things that seem to be most valuable is bring something really concrete, some skill or asset that isn't composing to the table. Like, for example, I am a composer way more than I am anything else, but I'm also a guitar player. I play a lot of guitar. I'm decent at guitar. I'm pretty good at recording myself playing guitar. And that has gotten me a ton of work with other composers and has opened up the avenue into like additional music and stuff because, you know, they need a guitar on a cue and I'm able to just do that. We don't have to go look for someone. I can just be the guy who does that. For myself personally, the type of assistant that would appeal to me most is like if you're amazing at violin or cello and we can just record you all day, every day on cues playing violin and cello. I mean, that would just be like massively helpful. If you're really good at making sample libraries, that's another one. If you're really good at creating content for the internet, like YouTube videos and TikTok videos, like that's huge. Just what else do you bring besides because they can compose, and they're gonna need your help with that. But what else do you bring that maybe they can't do? Like I can't play violin, I can't play cello, but an assistant who could would be really helpful. So yeah, hopefully that answers that question. Leah Fig, who's actually my wife, which is very sweet that she submitted a question, asks a question that she knows the answer to, but thought would be interesting for you guys. What does a normal workday look like for you? Now, every day is a little bit different, but a general day starts around 4:30 a.m. I live like a block away from my studio, so I get up really early, walk in the freezing cold over to my studio, where I sit down and get started on my day just right away, usually just with a cup of coffee, and get a head start on some things. Sometimes, you know, I've never been a person who works late. I just can't do it. My brain shuts down and I'm a zombie. So I've been the kind of guy who's like, I'm just going to get up early and get it done. And that has worked really well for me. And then usually around like 7:38, I go back to my house. And that's around the time that my kids are getting up. And so I'll help my wife get breakfast together, get my son ready for preschool, and just get to spend some quality time with the family and eat myself. And then after that, some days I'll go teach for a few hours. I teach a little bit on the side, like an hour or two a day, and then, or I'll come here, and then either after teaching or after breakfast, I come back to the studio, get back into the grind, work on, you know, whatever projects. Usually I'm working on 2 or 3 projects a day, some longer things, some like kind of day-to-day need to get done right away things, and some mid-tier things. There's always a million things to work on, so trying to be productive as much as possible. Around noon, I'll go back to the house for lunch, have lunch with just my wife and baby. Sometimes my son is there if it's a day he's not in preschool. Get to see him before he goes down for a nap. Then back here, or teaching, depending on if it's a day that I teach in the morning or the afternoon. And then end the day at my studio, and I'm usually done by 5. So it's about a 12-hour day, which is just something that works for me. I try never to work past 5 so I can go spend the evening with my family. Really try not to work weekends, even though that is increasingly more difficult, but it is something I'm pretty committed to. Try to keep it sort of between 5 a.m., 5 p.m., just for that work-life balance. Martin asks, what is the brand of your acoustic piano? So the acoustic piano that I have that you might have seen in the background of my videos, I'll shoot some B-roll of it that'll run right now as I talk. This piano is really, really cool. I love it. It's super charming. It makes a bunch of noise. It's kind of clunky, but it's just awesome. I actually got it from a storage closet that is in the building that I rent my studio space in. The guy, the maintenance guy was going to throw it away, like literally break it up and throw it away. And I was like, no, dude, this thing is sick. So we wheeled it into my room, and now it's my responsibility. It's a Conover. It's from like the 20s. It's nothing fancy, but I love it. It's charming, and it makes for a cool studio piece as well. I do record it all the time. So that's awesome. Stripey the Cat asks, ever played any banjo? Nathan Meir asks, what is your favorite instrument to play? I love playing guitar, but I don't know, it might be bass. I really like playing bass. Bass is really fun to play. Dan Barlinmar asks, what is your process of figuring out the feeling of a scene and bringing that out in the music? I mean, it really comes down to the conversations with the director or the producer, just getting in their head and trying to figure out what they want, what they are hoping that the music would provide for the scene, and then just watching, finding some emotional undertone or something not necessarily on the surface to latch onto, and just a way to help tell the story. I know that's all super abstract, but that is really kind of what it takes. And then just going through, you know, I'll lay down an idea on piano or guitar, and then I'll start kind of, you know, working in sounds. Sometimes I you know, get an idea for the whole thing, then go in and fill it out. But most of the time I actually kind of score literally almost second by second and kind of build vertically and just go along the horizontal plane with sort of complete musical ideas, which, you know, it works well for me. It's maybe not the way that everyone does it, but I like doing it that way. That way I'm just really paid attention to the emotional beats of each moment. Larry Daniel Briner asks, when did you realize, wow, I can write splendiferous melodies? That's incredibly kind, Larry. Larry is a cello player who's a phenomenal cello player who records on my scores a lot. And to answer your question, I don't know if I still believe that, but I definitely will say I did not know how to write a melody until after college. I did like the traditional conservatory thing, and you know, they teach you a lot about music structure. I was really into texture at the time, but I never really learned how to write a melody. And then after college, it was just doing it over and over and just trying to write music that people actually wanted to listen to. And, you know, that took years, but my melodies are getting a little better, maybe. Daniel Van Horn asks, best scoring contest to look into? A lot of you watching this video probably found my channel because I won the Indie Film Music Contest in its first ever year. And that's really the only one I know about. I know Spitfire's done a couple. I don't know. At the end of the day, I think what you look for is if there's a super high paywall to get in, don't do it. It's just not. It's not worth shelling out money to be a part of this thing that thousands of other people are going to be a part of. I don't know. Personally, if the paywall is pretty low, and by low I mean like 30 and under, I think just do any one that you can, because what you're going to get from it isn't really the feedback. If some of them offer is cool, but I think the thing that you're going to get more is that you're going to experience a deadline, maybe for the first time, and then you're going to have a film that you otherwise would never be able to get, that has the sound and no music in it, and that is just such an asset. So just for the experience of actually scoring a real film with a deadline, I mean, that is unbelievably valuable. So any competition that offers you that and doesn't make you pay an arm and a leg to get it, that's just what I would do personally. And the final question is from Jerome Schwepp, who asks, how many and which instruments can you play? I write for everything, so okay, at the risk of embarrassing myself, I'll just answer it this way. I can play some.